Welcome to the Competitive 40K podcast, brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. 40K Codex analysis, list building, strategy development, game theory, mentoring. Our mission, to help you become a better player and to raise the level of the game both on and off the tabletop. Here's your host, Stephen Box.
Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 10. And today we're going to be talking all things Dark Angel. So I'm joined today by our resident Dark Angel himself, Jack. How you doing, Jack?
All good, Steve. All good. It's a good time to be a Dark Angels player.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of noise about the Dark Angels recently. So we're going to talk about, obviously, why that is, what's happened, and how and why and where we might start seeing Dark Angels on the tabletop, because you haven't really showed much, love to the Dark Angels. So I thought, let's get you on. Let's talk about some of the stuff you've been playtesting. You were actually running these guys prior to the new Codex anyway. You were running them a bit in, obviously, 8th edition, a lot more in 9th, ever since the Psychic Awakening. So we can talk about some of that. But really, so what's happened to Dark Angels, in the last week? What's been the biggest change?
Yeah, so, as you said, I picked up Dark Angels again after Psychic Awakening, because it gave them some really good, interesting stratagems and relics and stuff, and really good options to play with. But unfortunately, that's now been whipped away by the powers that be, and we now have a FAQ in its place to tide us over to our supplement.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that have changed is the Space Marine Codex is now out in full release, and the Dark Angels fall within that now. So we won't be getting our own Codex, much like Blood Angels, Deathwatch, etc. So we can now lean on lots of the stuff that's in that Space Marine book in terms of additional units that are now available, relics, Warlord Traits, stratagems. So that's only a good thing. There's more choice there. But we've only got half the picture at the moment. And GW gave us a temporary document to tide us over till our supplement comes out.
Yeah, and what were the biggest changes in that sort of FAQ?
So they've actually given purpose to the inner circle keyword, which is the main point of discussion, I believe, on the internet at the moment. So previously,
who gets the inner circle?
So the inner circle applies to all the Ravenwing characters, Terminators, and specialist bike units such as Black Knights and the Ravenwing Command Squad. And previously, the rule just made you immune to morale, which was not particularly useful being a Space Marine anyway. Usually small squads, high leadership, so it didn't really come up. But now what they've done is added that anything with the infantry keyword and the inner circle keyword has permanent transhuman physiology.
Yeah, so they have to be infantry, right, to get that?
Yes, so it doesn't apply to the bikes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But which is amazing when you've got characters that are infantry based that cannot be wounded on a 1, 2, or 3, and Terminators that cannot be wounded on a 1, 2, or 3. It just massively increases your level of survivability, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's what I like about it is it gives the Deathwing something special. That these guys are specialist Terminators, and they finally got a rule that's fitting to them. There's a reason why you take Deathwing over any other chapters Terminators, because these guys are just better than the first company. So
yeah, and a few things you've pointed out there. So morale now, you're just immune from it, so that also means combat attrition, which does open up the fact that it means it is a slight buff to them, because Space Marines have lost their They Shall Know No Fear, right, in this new Codex. So you can't re-roll your failed morale checks anymore. So you just get around that by, look, I'm fearless. I actually took this in my Blood Angels list a lot, because then I didn't have to worry about taking 10-man units of Death Company or whatever. So it does mean, we might start seeing some big old squad sizes of these very expensive pointed models, but they're not having to worry about them failing morale, and they don't need to be near a character. They just, I'm not fussed. I don't care where I am on the table. I'm durable, and I'm not going to be running away, because there's nothing worse than losing a 50-point model to morale, is there?
No, absolutely.
So I think that is actually a nice little benefit, which you're not going to notice massively, but in a game which is all revolving around playing the mission, staying on objectives, doing actions, kicking your opponent off objectives, and basically just not leaving the tabletop, I think actually having some inbuilt durability, even if it is a morale, is a nice little buff. There is some other aspects where you can't fall back if you fail a morale check, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you got to roll 2d6 every time you wish to fall back and roll equal to or less than your leadership. If not, you got to stay in combat. I'll take that as a negative part of that trait for the benefits you get. If you're a Terminator squad, you got no business falling back anyway, so you deserve to fail that test. To be honest, you should be sticking in there.
Yeah, and then the Raven Wing, they also get in you an ability called Jink, right? And what is that?
Yeah, so Jink's been around for a while, and what it did mean is if you advanced, you got a 4-up invuln, which is great, especially if, say, like for a Blackwing Knight who's got assault weapons, so you can still advance and shoot. And there was also a good stratagem to advance a Ravenwing unit and count as not for the purposes of shooting and charging. So that was a good way to put a 4-up invuln on a unit of land speeders or a plane or anything like that. But they've changed it now, so if you move, you get a 5-up invuln stock, which is great. So you can move unit of bikes, unit of land speeders, just get a 5-up invuln and still shoot at full effectiveness. And they've kept if you advance, you get a 4-up invuln. So just a slight improvement on that, but any improvement's good. It's progress.
Yeah, nice. So what is the sort of super doctrine for when we say super doctrine, we mean like the benefit if you're a pure mono-faction Dark Angel player. So this isn't somebody that's souping in with Blood Angels or Iron Hands. So obviously you get the Shock Assault, you get all the stuff for being a Space Marine, but what is your super doctrine for being mono Dark Angel?
So the super doctrine is plus 6-inch range with rapid fire and heavy weapons, and plus 3-inch range with pistols and assault weapons while you're in Devastator doctrine. Which is okay. It's not the best super doctrine, but we can discuss later on how we can make good use of that. And just to note, their chapter ability now has been changed. So if you stay still, you get +1 to hit.
Oh, nice. So it used to be reroll 1s, right? Yes,
which was not the greatest because most armies had a captain anyway. So if you're going to have a captain, he'll give you the reroll 1s buff, and you can still move and do whatever you need to do. So the +1 to hits, really good if you were looking at vehicles as well, because that apply to them, especially in an age where rerolls to big vehicles is no longer a thing. So you can get them hit on 2s. So it gives some interesting options.
Yeah, so actually a vehicle build for the Dark Angels might be a good option. Obviously, if you are remaining stationary, then brilliant. And obviously a lot of the vehicles have got some fantastic range on them, so you can keep them at the backfield, stay out of range. Brilliant. Love it. Okay, nice. So let's have a little chat about what's one of the sort of appealing reasons why you might collect Dark Angels other than a sort of other just Marine Codex like Ultramarines or whatever it might be. What's appealing for you anyway?
Well, for me personally, I love the Black Knights. They're one of my favourite models ever since I got back into the hobby a few years ago. And it's and they've got some really interesting specialist units. So if you enjoy those kind of specialist aspects, then Dark Angels are a great choice for you in terms of having better bikes and better Terminators. So if that's something that you like about the Space Marines, then certainly Dark Angels might be one for you.
So it's a case of, as I see it, you've kind of got the elite of the elite, haven't you? You've got some real elite units, like if you to take Blood Angels, I've got the elite version of Vanguard veterans and jump pack troops with the Sanguinary Guard and Death Company. So you've got the elite versions of the sort of bikes and the Terminators, like you said. So if you really like those units, you're kind of doubling down on. And obviously you can tell that a lot of the unique abilities in terms of the Warlord traits and relics are really built into, and the stratagems as well, are buffing those. So if you are a Dark Angel player, you really want to be leaning into the more times you can see that keyword pop up, which is inner circle, you know you're probably on the right track to a good, well-rounded list that you can, well, not necessarily well-rounded, but actually a little bit the opposite of that in terms of, you can really build some extreme builds, can't you, with the Dark Angels?
Yeah, definitely. There's a few different ways you can play them, which I think we're going to cover shortly. But I've always really liked the Dark Angels, and I'm happy that we're getting more stuff by access to the general Codex Space Marines, which later on will be tied in with their own supplements. So Dark Angel players will have more tools to their toolkit than they ever would have before.
Yeah. So let's go into some of the top combinations, because it's good to look at the combinations that you can stack and things like that. But obviously what we like to do here at Vanguard Tactics is look at how you actually become better at the game in terms of your playing ability. So how do you bring all this out? Because it's no good just going, okay, I've got a really good top combination or top build here, but if you don't know how to use it on the tabletop, it's utterly pointless. If you don't know what your hard or good matchups are, then you're not going to know if you need to go first or second. You're not going to know what you need to play test. You're not going to know how to play the mission particularly well. You're not going to know what secondaries to take, and you're not also potentially taking the wrong secondaries that are going to, stop your ability to score at the game. So let's have a little look at some of these combinations, and then we'll build this into a bit more of a well-rounded list. And that I see you've got 3 lists for us to look at. And if anyone wants to take a look at these builds and lists, they will be on the Vanguard Tactics website. So it's www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/S2EP10. You can see all these 3 different builds. And again, it's a starting point that you've given the guys, haven't you, Jack?
Yeah, I very much threw these together to see what units could kind of fit and trying to balance and round off a whole list. I think it's very easy to get carried away looking at a certain data sheet or a certain rule, like the inner circle rule, and get carried away and get, Deathwing are amazing. I want to put as many in as I can to a single 2,000 point list and realise that mechanically it just doesn't work. You can't play it the way that you intended to, or it just doesn't play the mission. So I've looked at how you kind of balance those things off, and just as a starter, really, for you Dark Angels players.
Yeah, nice. Or if you're, potentially up against a Dark Angel player, you can have a little look at that and think, right, what are some of the combinations they might be using against me? What are some of the tricks that they might start to perform at the table? So let's have a little chat about the Deathwing bomb, we'll call it. I'm sure there's a better name out there, but you've got Deathwing, you've got Terminators that are either taking the robes where they've got the maces and the flails, right? With all the
Deathwing Knights, yeah.
Okay, so talk us about the Deathwing Knights, and then we'll layer in some of the stratagems, Warlord Traits that we can sort of amplify these units by.
Cool. So Deathwing Knights were updated as part of their FAQ. So they now have a weapon skill of 2+ now. So they've gone from 3 to 2. So it's brilliant. Wow. And they've gained the additional wound as well: strength 4, toughness 4, 2 attacks. So other than that, they're the same as a normal Terminator. But they all come with storm shields, which has also been updated to reflect the new rules, and they come with a Mace of Absolution, which is now actually exactly the same as a Thunderhammer, because it's only AP2, but now the Thunderhammer's AP2 as well, flat 3 damage, but you don't suffer the -1 to hit with it. So you're hitting on 2s with those Thunderhammers. So on the charge, you're getting 3 attacks with each one of those, so plenty of damage output there. And the Sergeant's got a flail, which is strength 6 -3, 2 damage, and any damage spills over with that weapon as well. So that's quite nice for going into a horde. So they're a really tanky unit that hits ridiculously hard. They should, whatever they charge, they should kill.
Yeah, I mean, with that, because you've also gained an extra wound, haven't you?
Yes, you're up to your 3 wounds as well.
So you're getting a 2 attacks base, +1 for charging, because you're a Marine, so you're getting 3 Thunderhammer attacks, essentially, hitting on 2s without the penalties. So obviously other ones in the game are hitting on 4s, because they take a -1 to hit. You're not getting that, so actually you're getting a kind of +2 to hit compared to everybody else with the Thunderhammer.
Yep.
You're getting the Storm Shield now, and actually the Storm Shield's benefited you a lot, because you get obviously the +1 to your armor save. So you're on a 1+ armor save, 4+ invulnerable save, which is brilliant. You can deny a psychic test as well, which is brilliant. And
yeah, they have changed the I forgot what it's called, that
the Watcher in the Dark.
yes, they had changed that. It was much better. It used to be once per game, 3-up, deny a power.
Okay.
So now they've changed that to it's once per game deny. So it's a lot weaker than it was. But it's a nice option if you had 5 points to spend at the end of your list. You just put that in, you got a cheeky deny in your list.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about attempting to deny a witch as if it was a psyker, now the good thing about that is actually you can use that, I would think, against psychic actions because you are, trying to deny the witch. So it does give you, if you're not taking librarian in your list, it does give you the ability just for your opponent to have some sort of counter, which I do think is good.
No, that's a good point.
So it's like a sort of secondary denial rather than just a 3-up, because actually that wouldn't affect that. So it's that if that's GW's intention there, great. And I actually see the Dark Angels as a really good mission denial list, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more shortly as we sort of cover some of the other units. So that's great. So you've got the extra wound, you've got the built-in transhuman. So I'm actually thinking the Deathwing Knights. Did they take much of a points increase in this FAQ?
Not too bad. They went up a fair bit at the beginning of 9th edition. So they're sitting at 47 points a model now. So yeah, unit of 10s setting you back 500 points basically, which is a quarter of your army. But they do hit hard. They are resilient. So I think they're well pointed for what they can do.
Yeah, and you still got the ability to combat squad. So if you did have a unit of 10, then you can just go down in 2 units of 5 potentially, depending on what you were facing. And then you've got another really good stratagem that came out, which is 1 CP, I believe. And if you're facing against a unit of 10 or more models, then you get an additional attack as well. So like you said, you've got that ability to go through Horde because you're going to be getting 4 attacks on the charge. That's 40 attacks from a 10-man unit, and that will just pick anything up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's a good stratagem for them.
And for 1 CP and another CP, you can give yourself toughness 5 as well.
Yes, that plays. Because if you're thinking about countering this unit now, okay, I got permanent transhuman. I'm just going to put a load of strength 4 weaponry into these knights to get my maximum efficiency. You just drop 1 CP, you're wounding them on 5s. So that's a nice one again. So the most efficient weapon really for dealing with these is strength 5.
Yes, because they've got that stratagem.
Yeah, because you've got it in your pocket. So that's really nice. Back with supported by transhuman physiology to them. It's great.
And also, even if you have to be greater than -1. So, for example, a heavy bolt is not really going to be sufficient now because even though that's strength 5, a -1's they're still going to be on their 2+ save, and if they're in cover, they're going to be on a 0+ save. So you at least need a -3 just to even take this unit to its invulnerable save. So I really start to feel Terminators now are going to start to perform like Terminators.
Yeah, and on that defensibility point, their Deathwing Ancient model relic can give them a 5-up feel no pain and a 6-inch aura. So if you've got an Ancient that comes down with them, you could then, again, stacking on that defensibility, a 5-up feel no pain with that additional wound. It was great in the last edition when I was using that all the time, but that additional wound now, it's incredible, really. I'm surprised it made the cut.
I mean, I like it because it does say, because I've obviously got the standard of sacrifice for Blood Angels, which I no longer have anymore, which is obviously a massive shame. But it's nice because it's like this applies to Deathwing, so it's not army-wide, it's Deathwing. So now, Deathwing, they still a core unit, they are, aren't they? So they still can get rerolls and all that other stuff from litanies or captains and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a quick chat about then this Deathwing Ancient. Is he making the list for that 5+? Is he making it in, do you think? Or do you not need the 5+, do you think? Is it overkill, potentially? Is it too many points synced into this one unit?
Yeah, potentially, because I would be leaning towards a Ravenwing Apothecary, which we'll explain why in a minute, because he acts as the delivery mechanism for them.
Okay, go on then. Let's talk about that then. So there's nothing really much else to talk about in terms of combinations we could really build into this Deathwing more than we've already done, which, Let's be honest, they're going to kill anything they touch. So, okay, where does this guy come into, this Ravenwing Ancient come into the fold?
So the Ravenwing Apothecary. So he gives you the 6 that feel no pain, like all other apothecaries in Aura, as part of his new ability.
Is that core units, is it?
It'd be core units. It's exactly. I've just checked the wording to make sure it's worked on Dark Angels units.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
Rather than just Ravenwing. So it does work for the Deathwing Knights. So he's giving you 6 that feel no pain out of the box. Great. That's a really good ability. But I like to put the relic on this chap as well, which is the Reliquary of the Repentant. I've just butchered that. But what that means is he gives a 3-inch aura of -1 invulnerable saves to a minimum of 6+.
Nice.
So he's got that, and this was the old way that I was running in. So he had that relic, great. So I can put in this -1 invuln wherever I need it to be. And the reason why he works for a delivery mechanism for the Deathwing, because there's a 2 CP stratagem which made it into the FAQ called Combined Assault, which means if your Ravenwing biker did not advance, a unit of Deathwing can be set up wholly within 6 of the bike and wholly and just outside of 6 of enemy models. So that means you're on a 6-inch charge with the Deathwing.
Yeah, that's pretty nice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's combined with the full throttle stratagem, which means you can move the bike twice.
But you can't shoot or charge, right? If you use that, but again, you're still getting a 28-inch move.
Yeah, but this is just the apothecary, so you don't mind him not shooting his gun.
Yeah.
So you move him twice. So you move him 28 inches because you can't advance because you need to use the combined assault stratagem after. But from standing still, that guy's moving 28 inches and he's dropping a block of Deathwing on the board. So with a pretty reliable charge these days.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest factors, that when you've got a hard-hitting combat unit, you cannot, if you can only bring them in turn 2 anyway, what you don't want to happen is have another turn where they're doing nothing. So making every single time you can take away a dice roll means that you're going to improve your chances of success, whether it's you're removing saves like you're saying there, whether you're manipulating a dice roll, whether you're decreasing a charge roll, whatever it might be. Every time you take away that luck aspect, you are going to significantly improve your chances at the tabletop, because you can rely on consistency rather than inconsistency and variability that dice roll bring us in the game. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic, and I wish most armies, I wish mine did anyway, have a little unit like this, because we've seen this to great effect with things like the Custodes have something similar. So again, like every time you can then build in your list any ways to deny this as a counterplay, then that's also great as well, isn't it? Like if you've got infiltrators, that would stop this from happening, wouldn't it?
No, I think it was a necessary addition to the toolbox for the Dark Angels, because you couldn't afford to have a 500-point Deathwing Knight squad in Deep Strike on a 9-inch charge. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't rely on that. And then all of a sudden you could have 500 points, deep striking down and failing its charge, and then being out in the open to kill next turn. So it's nice that they've added this tool in, that it makes them a viable option in your list, which is what we all want.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant, and I think there's certainly like plays here where, would you be looking at taking the Chief Apothecary so you could regain 3 wounds a turn on a unit as for a Warlord trait on him? Because then you can start bringing back, a 46-point model a turn if you're going to take that Chief Apothecary, or you're not really worried about that, do you think?
I think it would be there if I had the 20 or 30 points left at the end of the list. I'd look at it. But what I find with the Dark Angels is you run out of points very quickly. If you're taking the Deathwing Knights and some Black Knights and some of the special characters, you start to feel the pinch. So if I needed to shave a few points, that's maybe somewhere where I would look to make a bit of a saving.
Yeah, and I think that's again just a fantastic little addition. That you could, like you said, if you got 30 points left over, chuck it on, and if you get one model back, actually that's points well made, isn't it? And then you've got the stratagem, isn't it, to get another one back somewhere else?
Yeah, so yeah, if he's a chief apothecary, he can bring a model back for free, can't he? Every turn, as well as heal up 2 other units. So yeah, and if your list is going to run like a 10-man block of Terminators, you probably auto include him, because you're most likely to get the efficiency out of that ability, because it's going to be very rare that someone's going to take the 10-man Terminators out in one hit, based on all the defensive buffs that you can do. So there's a good chance that you get to use your ability to start bringing these models back.
Yeah, and someone's going to have to put a lot in to remove it. So, yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. So what are some of the things that we can do with the Raven Guard? So Raven Guard is like your bikes.
Raven Wing.
Raven Wing. I've said Raven Guard multiple times, so apologies. Raven Wing. There's too many Ravens, too many guards, too many wings. Anyway, so Raven Wing. I was even looking at the word and still said the wrong thing. That's my dyslexia for you. So anyway, yeah, okay, talk us about the Raven Wing. You have lost some stuff, haven't you? So these are bikes with basically plasma talons. They do have fighting picks as well. Or I don't know what they're called, hammer picks.
Corvus hammers.
Yeah, there we go. So talk us about this unit. What have you lost since the FAQ, but what have you gained?
So if we talk about the Black Knights datasheet, because that's been updated, so they've gained the additional wounds. That's great. They're up to 3 wounds. And then the rest of the profile is exactly the same as a normal bike in terms of their strength, toughness, etc. They are veterans, so they get 2 attacks each base. What I like is they've updated the Corvus hammer, so it's still +1 strength. It's still -1 AP, but the damage is now flat 2. Previously, it was on a wound roll of a 6, you got D3 damage. So their combat potential was not particularly good or reliable, but now with that flat damage 2, they become an interesting unit to throw into combat to get a job done.
Yeah,
and then they've got their plasma talons, which is their shooting, which is an assault 2 plasma gun, 18-inch range.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, okay. And you used to be able to use like weapons of the Dark Angels, right?
Yeah. There's 2 stratagems I really liked with these guys. One being Weapons of the Dark Age to increase damage on plasma by 1. So that means you could not overcharge and get damage 2. That's really good if you're facing up against a -1 to hit vehicle like a plane or something like that. But then on the overcharge, it made you flat damage 3, which is you're shooting with 2 thunder hammers off 18-inch range basically at that point. So very good for killing Gravis models, for prime example. I'm sure they'll be popping up soon everywhere. But unfortunately, that's gone for the moment.
That sounds like a stratagem that will probably come back into the fold.
Yeah,
right? It's not overpowered. It's very thematic for the Dark Angels. So again, plasma's their thing, so it makes sense they have a stratagem. So no doubt that will come back in the future. Okay, and then what was the other stratagem that you mentioned that you liked but you've lost?
It was the 1 CP. You could advance but still shoot with no negative assault. You could just shoot actually as you hadn't advanced and charge. So that means that you got the 4-up invuln, and then you could charge. So you could move 20 inches, get your 4-up invuln, and declare a charge and shoot at full effectiveness. But that's at the moment not in this FAQ. But again, I'd imagine something like that would appear back in the supplement.
And you also, we're going back a little bit now, but you also had a nice Vigilus ability, didn't you? That you could.
The Raven Wing Attack Squadron.
Yeah, what could that do?
So that could, once you'd inflicted a wound on a unit, you could spend 1 CP for everyone to get +1 to hit. So that was very good for like attack bikes and land speeders with heavy weapons. So you could move them, chip the wound, get +1 to hit with everyone. So you're back to hitting on 3s within Samael's reroll range. So I like that. And they also had the fallback. You could hit and run. So you charge in, you swing with your combat attacks, and then you could move back out of combat, which is a great ability.
Absolutely unreal, that ability, and I really hope you get that in your next codex. So that was why I thought I'd bring that up, because it's an exciting aspect that we've got more to look forward to when this codex drops, or this supplement drops in the future, if we can start to see some of these aspects brought back in. But okay, now, do you think the Raven Wing are worth it for now? Have they still got play? What do you reckon?
I think because I really like the Black Knights, but And there's a good Warlord trait you could pair with a Ravenwing character, so you could advance with no negative. So you could have a couple of units advancing up the board, a 4-up Invan. They are quite a good target for the stratagem to put all Doctrines active on, because if you put them into, if you're in turn, it doesn't matter what turn you're in, but it means the Devastator Doctrine gives them extra 3-inch range on their Plasma Talons, so up to 21.
Yeah.
It means that you're AP4 on your Plasma Talons, and it also gives you the AP2 on the Corvus Hammers.
Yes,
so I think
nice,
from looking at this, all the Space Marine units, this is probably one of the units that I've found best use of that stratagem. If you just needed that extra little bit, it might be situational, but the extra 3-inch range could be all different to target a unit behind a screen. Then you can use them to charge the screen and things like that. So there's got some interesting play in there.
Yeah, and going from -3 to -4 is a real sweet spot in a Marine meta, because obviously a normal Primaris Marine, an aggressor, is not going to be getting a save. It's going to be going straight through. And then -2 in combat is beautiful as well, rather than just that -1. Because the -1 is kind of counteracted by things like Blade Guard and stuff, like the Storm Shields that they have. But getting that that -2, all of a sudden you're taking them down a peg or two in terms of their ability to make those saves. So I think that's really, like a very unique stratagem. There are some really cool Warlord traits that you can take for the Raven Guard. I do like the one which allows you to pre-move a character and unit, because I just like anything that can pre-game move. I think super strong in 9th edition, whether it's to deny things like investigate sites or deploy, raise the banners, anything like that, which just means you can grab an objective even before your opponent can get there. I think it's very, very tactical. The only problem is it's a very expensive unit you're doing that on, and if your opponent can alpha strike that unit, then you're going to lose it. So you are throwing away a rook, so to speak, just to deny some secondary points. But if you
wanted to play into that, you could use normal bikes instead to keep them cheap. Is that something that you wanted to use as a point denial strategy, you wouldn't necessarily have to use it on the Black Knights, because all normal bikes and attack bikes also, and Outriders, gain the Ravenwing keyword as well.
Okay, right, that's good. Okay, yeah, so you could just use it on a 3-man unit bikes or whatever. Okay, yeah, like it. Nice. So we've spoke about the combination between a Raven Guard bike and then using that stratagem to bring your Deathwing in. Is there any other sort of archetypes that you can think of that people might want to look at?
I think there's definitely a build around Azrael, who's the chapter master of Dark Angels.
Okay, and what does he do?
So he's got all the normal chapter master abilities, and that's all been updated to match everyone else. But he's got a couple of really unique things. If he's your Warlord, you get additional 2 CP. Great.
That's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, especially because you can give out Warlord traits. Like they're going out of fashion from the new Space Marine book. You may as well make him your Warlord to then buy 2 additional Warlord traits for free. So yeah, that works. And he gives all friendly Dark Angels, infantry, and biker units within 6 of this model a 4-up Invan save against ranged attacks.
Wow, that's strong. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine you guys can all imagine, aggressor blocks or heavy intercessor blocks around this guy. Plasma receptors. Whatever you fancy. It's a very strong ability.
Yeah, when you're sort of combining these stacks together, so you could have your heavy intercessors as your troops, you could go 30 of them foot slogging up the table, and it does say unit is within 6 models in that unit. So actually, as long as one of the models from the 10 is like towing in that sort of 6-inch aura, these 30 heavy intercessors could be getting this 4+ invulnerable save. If they're near your apothecary, then they're going to be getting a 6+ feel no pain as well. They could become double obsec from, for example, a chapter ancient that can do that with steadfast warlord trait. So you can really heavily build into like a sort of just a massive block of infantry walking up the table, right?
Yeah. A really resilient, durable block of just slow. It'll be slow to trundle up the board. You know, he's only a 6-inch move. He's on foot. He hasn't got a jump pack or anything like that. But it is going to be very hard to shift him off when those guys get a move on up the board. So it's definitely an option if that suits your play style. Just a really strong, resilient brick moving its way up the board. So the 4 Invans an amazing ability.
Yeah, and if you are taking normal Terminators, because you can do that as well, there are some good options for that. Like Lightning Claws now are great, aren't they? Really good additions to the game.
Lightning Claws are so efficient. So actually, that's a good point. You've reminded me there. Because he's not Primaris, he can go to drop pod.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the drop pod build in a minute, aren't we? But you could have, obviously, a unit of 10 Terminators or 2 units of 5 Terminators with Lightning Claws to get the efficiencies in combat, but then now with a 4+ invulnerable save if they're near this guy.
Yeah, so you've lost nothing from having the shield, really, except for the +1 to save. But, Lightning Claw Terminators are looking very, very efficient at the moment.
Yeah, and I also like to be honest, I really like the look of the other characters that you can take, like the Chaplain that can, get 1 to his roll for when he's doing like the Litany of Hate. Great ability there. I think that's absolutely fantastic. He, affects people in terms of their. If you make somebody make a morale check and they fail it, then they count as below half strength. That Aura of Dread can, be situationally good. But again, you can play into that when you start to mess about with leadership modifications and taking people to, because it's much, much harder to pass a morale check now in this edition. So if you can get your opponent rolling 1s and 2s more often, then great. I also think Ezekiel is good, having, can attempt 2 psychic and deny 2, and it knows 3 psychic powers, so he's basically chief librarian. Well, he is a chief librarian, and also gives a +1 attack. So even if you're not in the first round of combat, you're still going to get that. So if you have got ongoing combats, which sometimes you can find with Terminators or whatever, if you are like bogged down against a horde or whatever, let's say you're fighting up against 30 orc boys, it is going to take you a couple of turns to get through it. So having that ability just to make sure that doesn't prolong into another combat phase is really important, I think.
There was some good psychic powers for Dark Angels, which they've currently lost, but you could say he's a master of his home discipline, so he gets +1 to cast when he's selecting from his own, which is not available. So that tells us that Dark Angels will be getting their own psychic discipline when the supplement comes out. And there's some really interesting ones in there. So yeah, you're right. He could become a great unit. Again, he's not a Primaris model, so he can jump in that party pod that we're going to talk about shortly.
Yeah, so let's talk about the party pod then. So this is, again, a bit out there, a little bit left field. So the party pod, talk us through it. What have we got?
Yeah,
and
so so we came up with this because we were talking about the chapter tactics. So how do we leverage mileage out of this chapter tactic? The chapter tactic, to remind everyone, is +1 to hit if you stay still. So that means an infantry model, and there's also what we found out from the new Space Marine stratagems is there's a stratagem for 2 CP to counter stationary for a unit, for an infantry unit. So we could stack infantry with heavy weapons that have moved that would be hitting on 4s. We could swing all that way back around to hitting on 2s.
Yep.
So that sounds pretty good to me. So.
Yep, especially if you've got Azrael now, but nearby for that reroll 1 aura.
Yeah, so we consider what's the best infantry with heavy weapons, and Devastators are looking brilliant now with 2 wounds. They're not just necessarily a one and done kind of unit; they've got a bit more survivability. So what we like the look of is the multi-melters on a unit of Devastated Marines in a drop pod with Azrael to come down.
And the other good thing about multi-melters is that now they get double the amount of shots than they did. I really like the way they've changed damage profile, and now you get that +6-inch range. The problem with multi-melters before was the range. It can be easily screened out even at 24 inches, or means you have to get dangerously close to your opponent. But now with that +6-inch range, you can bring the drop pod, 33 inches away. You can disembark your 3, and now you're within 30 inches because you're getting that plus 6-inch range for the turn because you're going to count as stationary if you're in turn 1, which is a Devastator Doctrine, right? So you're now longer, so you're hitting on 2s now, and you're in Devastator Doctrine, so you're going to get an additional -1 on a melt weapon, if that ever comes into play, and then also you're going to be getting that plus 6-inch range, so you can keep this unit far away from the enemy, as you need, really. So I think that's great, yeah.
No, it's certainly something I want to play test and try out. If it's multi-melters or grav cannons or whatever it might be, I think it's definitely got some nice options. The good thing about it is because you're hitting on 2s, you get the full effectiveness out of Azrael because you'd be re-rolling your 1s. Because if you'd come in via a pod, he couldn't use his Chapter Master ability that turn. Yeah. But then he's also projecting that 4-up Inven. If you say waited till turn 2. You could drop him in. You could drop the pod in with your 10 Deathwing with claws and things like that to get that 4-up Inven up the board or what and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's definitely a good pick in your army. It gives your opponents something to really consider if they've got any vehicles or monsters that don't have an Inven save. They're going to have to play very cagey, not to be hit by that pod.
Yeah, I'm thinking like double pod, and I'm thinking.
Oh, there you go.
Multi-melters in one squad with obviously the guy that allows you to shoot again. So you're pumping up a good 10 shots turn 1, right?
Yeah.
Then Azrael in said pod. And then what you're going to do, turn 2, is you're going to bring another pod in with the grav.
Yeah.
And you're going to rinse, repeat that same stratagem. Yeah. So what you can then do is if you don't need the multi-melters in at that time, if they're 30 inches away, you can often do an action that turn. While Azrael just moves in advance forward to make range of where you're going to bring your next drop pod in. And I think, looking at troop choices like incursors to make sure you can screen out that midfield so you know where you can bring these pods in, I think could be a really, nice way to just lean into the Dark Angels a little bit more and still have plenty of play on the mission because you can drop a drop pod in this quarter, great, that will get me an engage, drop another one not too far away but to get another engage, and then now all of a sudden your opponent's got to deal with killing drop pods to stop you from scoring your secondaries whilst you're pumping out little units here and there which are affordable for their sort of punch that they can deliver, whilst they've then got this threat of a Deathwing bomb coming in, 2 units of 5, whatever it might be, in a really, really good delivery system for that. So, that's kind of what I'm thinking just off the top of my head, which I wouldn't mind playing around with. And you could take that to an extreme, right? You could go full grav drops with, 1,000 points in drop pods. You could do 500 points of knights in reserve and then just 500 points on the table, because now the game's changed in which if you don't have anything left at the table, you still carry on playing. So it's going to be hard to score primary points for a turn, but if that means that you can completely null deploy your opponent turn 1 and they've got no decent threats, they're pretty much wasting their first turn, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they let you go first, and then you just get an absolute incredible
free
alpha.
Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward strategy, that one. But then if you get to the board and you look at your opponent's army, and you see that they can screen the whole board out, you just run your pods empty and put everything on the board. That's what I'm really enjoying about transports, is having a few in my army to give myself the options. So actually, I could put those Devastators in the pod, or I could put them on the board, or whatever, and that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some interesting choices to make as a Dark Angels player, and there's interesting reasons why you may take them over a different chapter, which is great.
Yeah, so let's have a little look at some of these archetypes and let's have a little bit of a play into some of the secondaries. So let's say we're taking the Deathwing, we're going full on Deathwing. I mean, as elite as we possibly can with these Terminators. What could be good secondaries to put in this kind of, or what would you be picking if you're a Deathwing player?
I'd be looking at things like while we stand, we fight. Your very durable army. So people are going to struggle to get through all your Deathwing, so that should be a good choice.
So as long as you've got 3 characters, that's a goer.
Yep.
Yeah. What else would you be looking at?
Anything that's relying on holding probably the centre of the board and keeping that clear.
So like investigate sites or some of the mission ones. Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that new Space Marine one to take people off objectives.
Shock
that
tactics, I think it is.
Yeah,
and you've also got Oaths of Moment.
That's the one I was literally about to say that. So they play quite well into those.
So you don't need to worry about grabbing the table. You can literally hold down in the middle, peel off to the left to do something, peel off to the right. But basically, you're commanding control of the table, really, because you don't need to worry about spreading yourself too thin, do you? You can kind of pick where you attack from with these elite armies, which I really like. And then if you went to the other extreme and you went full Raven Wing, you got great maneuverability. So now all of a sudden you could be looking at things like engage on all fronts, line breaker. Again,
it's the inverse,
tactics.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So they can literally do it. When you look at Dark Angels, they can actually be completely opposite armies. So actually trying to build against Dark Angels is difficult because it can do so much. There's so much variety. Or they could have a combination list, which then you're actually going to need to make sure if you're doing a combo list with a bit of Raven Guard, a bit of Deathwing, you're going to probably need plenty of infantry in that list as well. So some good quality tactical Marines maybe. Now they're back in the fold.
Yeah, definitely. They're such a good troop choice now.
Get banners, scramblers.
Absolutely. I like the combined Deathwing Raven Wing because I've played a lot of games with them, and you could play in different types of ways depending on who you're facing in the mission. So I think it gives you, as you're saying, lots of options in game, and having a big block of Deathwing and Deep Strike, and your opponent knowing that you could drop that effectively where you want it, gives your opponent a right headache to deal with and counter it. While you've got the Raven Wing nipping around the board, pinging off, engaging all fronts, and churning the mission.
And if you have got a cheeky drop pod kicking about, then there's nothing stopping you putting your multi-melters in there and then just a squad of tack boys, right? A 5-man tactical squad can just jump out and start doing actions for you.
Well, if, let's say you had Line Breaker and they left you a drop pod size hole, or you shot a drop pod size hole into the back lines, you could bring that drop pod in. That's a drop pod, unit tactical Marines, unit devastator Marines. That's 3 units in the back in their deployment zone to hopefully churn Line Breaker out for you.
Yep, no, I like that. No, absolutely, and that's exactly what you could do using the Deathwing. So the Raven Wing guy could move up 24 inches or 28, bring down the Deathwing turn 2. They can clear a massive hole for you. Then you can bring in double drop pods turn 3, or maybe something you've put in outflank. So that's really where you can start to. I think this list can really play well with a good tactician and a good general thinking, right, I'm going to surgically strike that quarter of the table, and I know my Deathwing are just going to go through every single unit they touch. And then I can bring in drop pods or, eradicators from reserve, whatever it might be, whatever your flavor of guns are behind this, Deathwing unit that's just, using the ability to just walk through any unit it touches, basically. And again, like if you went for like Azrael build that I spoke about with heavy intercessors, and even foot slogging Terminators with lightning claws, so you're maximizing that, toughness 5 with that stratagem, everything having pretty much transhuman, because if they're not shooting the Terminators, they try and shoot a Primaris unit, you can chuck transhuman itself stratagem on that. Again, while we stand, we fight. Banners, scramblers, investigate sites. So some really good options there for playing into the secondaries. And then, just using things like infiltrators or incursors as troops, potentially, just for a bit of denial. So if you're finding that your list doesn't score that big, because, if this list isn't getting you 15, 15, 15 on your secondaries, one thing you might want to look at is things like incursors or infiltrators that can start up the table to start deny your opponent the ability to hold the mission. So the game isn't just about how many points you can score. Like I would say the Blood Angels were very good at scoring on the primary and the secondaries. So if the Raven Wing are a little bit more finesse because they've got the mobility, but like you said, you start to run out of points quickly. Maybe you need to look at how do you start to deny your opponent from scoring so that you can still win the game. And that's the most important thing about 9th edition is not only your ability to score, but your also ability to deny your opponent points as well. So They've got some good stuff, Jack. So let's talk about quickly, how do we counter the Dark Angels? What sort of things can shut this, shut this army down? What would you be looking at?
So yeah, I think we were talking about a Deathwing earlier. They're the boogeyman of all this. Good screening. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they can deep strike 6 inches away. If it's still going to smash into a screen and kill it. So that's one way of you can really hurt the Deathwing. If someone's gone Deathwing heavy, you look to not interact with it. You try and work around the edges and not necessarily have to try and make your strategy to win the game without having to kill the Terminators. Like if you had engaged in all fronts or nipping around the back to get line breaker and things like that, because they are so resilient, but they're very slow. Yeah. So once they're committed to a point on the board, that's it. You know where they are. You know where they are. They don't have access to the teleport homers, unlike normal space Marine Terminators.
Yeah, so that, like you said there, once the Deathwing are in, they're in. So if you're taking like Linebreaker could be a really good option against a Space Marine player, a Dark Angel player, because the Raven Wing want to be moving up quickly to deliver the Deathwing, but then all of a sudden the Raven Wing have got to do a completely 180 turn and go back in their own deployment zone, and they don't really have enough units to screen out their deployment zone either. So Linebreaker could be a really good option to take against a Dark Angel player, I think.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
But things like Assassinate, it's a no-go, because obviously you're not going to be killing those inner circle characters very easily, so certainly that would be a bad choice. And again, anything that, don't go anything that wants to take the midfield, because that's exactly where this Dark Angel Deathwing blob wants to be, is in the centre of the table, because they're more than likely going to be going for the, investigate sites in, any of the secondary missions that revolve around the centre of the table. Let them have it. So use the edges, because a Deathwing player with Raven Wing is going to struggle to get engaged in all fronts because it can't be everywhere. And if the Deathwing wants to be in the middle of the table, it then can't score engage in all fronts. So again, use that to your advantage. Pull the army apart. Let the characters go one way, but pull a unit off another. And again, mortal wounds isn't really something that this army's going to like at all, is it?
No, if you can bypass the armor, the invuln save, then you're just onto the feel no pain. Great, bypass that layer of defensive abilities, get past transhuman as well.
Yeah, so anything like, if you're an Eldar player, things like Smite, Executioner, any targeted smites that you can get from like Gaze of Aeneadin or whatever it might be from Ynnari powers, or obviously Thousand Suns have got a lot of targeted smites. Great way of just churning through those wounds without much resistance.
Yeah, with the Catans as well.
Yeah, so I think definitely Mortal Wounds is a great way to start to play into this list if you do need to deal damage to it. But like Jack said there, try to avoid the Deathwing. And then the other aspect which we could talk about is move blocking, right? So just feed a unit, block off a certain place, stop it from engaging, and also with your screens, if you're going to screen out nice and high, let that unit take the charge from the Deathwing, so it has to come into that. But then make sure your next unit isn't going to give the Deathwing a free move, so make sure you're keeping it out of charge range. So constantly asking your opponent, your Raven Wing unit, okay, what's its maximum charge range? Okay, I'm going to stay outside of that, so it can't, you're not giving this Raven Wing or Deathwing player any free movement in the charge phase. So just be really, really careful of that you're not letting this really slow Deathwing army actually get more pace once it's down on the table.
And blocking off the Raven Wing to stop them using the stratagem as well. That's also a good tactic to deep strike the Deathwing. Bikes don't fly, so you can pin off. You can block off certain areas between two terrain pieces, for example, so you can dictate where the bikes are going to go. And you can funnel it into a place where you want it.
Yeah, so if you've got anything that can pre-game move, or anything that can, infiltrate or scout deploy, whatever it might be, take full advantage of that and just, move block that bike so it cannot deliver where it wants to be. So then you don't have to worry about the Alpha Strike. You can then set up your screens, because you don't know if you're going to be going first or second. So if you can do the move blocking in the pre-game aspect, then brilliant. And I think, players definitely want to look at building that into their lists. Look at your Codex, whether it's Tau, you're taking Pathfinders or stealth suits, or for example, in my sister's list, I like the unit that can pre-game move. I can't remember what they're called actually off the top of my head, but Dominions, that's the ladies, yeah. So anything like that, start to build it in, because it's incredibly strong, especially on the denial game as well. And that's one other thing I would certainly say about this list. It's going to struggle to be in multiple places at once, right? So once you've cut away the tactical boys or the Primaris, units that are OBSEC, this army's pretty much only going to be holding one or holding two. So just making sure you can hold more is a massive way to just limit your opponent or the Dark Angel player to score in the primary. So really take advantage of using the outskirts of the table to make sure you're getting the hold more. And you have to be doing that against the Dark Angel player, because they're certainly going to win the punch fight. You need to win the mission, I think. But yeah, any other tips you would give somebody playing against the Dark Angels?
I think we summarised that their weaknesses. They're elite army with a small footprint, and just don't base your win strategy in killing Deathwing. If you see it come up to the table, come up with a strategy to remove everything else in that army and leave the Deathwing alone. And you should have the board. You should be holding more every turn. And yeah, you should get your secondaries. So that's I think that's how you deal with it.
Yeah, like it. All right, Jack. Well, look, I think I think we've covered some really, really good stuff there. So once again, mate, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
No, thanks for having me, and I look forward to getting the Dark Angels out when I'm
we'll have to get them on the stream soon. So hopefully, we'll be able to deliver a stream or back report with the Dark Angel soon in action. So again, guys, you can head over to see these lists over on www.vanguardtactics.com/blog/S2EP10. And again, thank you very much. Make sure you do subscribe so you get notified every time we drop a new podcast. And if you don't mind, leave us a review, and it'd be fantastic to read out some of those reviews in future shows. And obviously a nice little 5-star for good luck. But again, we really appreciate all the listens, follows, shares we've had recently. I think somebody posted in the Competitive 40k group what was a good Competitive 40k podcast to listen to, and so many people said the Vanguard Tactics show. So again, really support all, or really appreciate all the support, should I say. And one other thing is that I've actually got a little bit of good news, haven't I, Jack?
Oh, what's this?
So I have made the top 16 for the England team.
Yes.
I kept my application quite quiet, but I found out yesterday or last night of this recording that I've made the top 16 along with some absolute incredible other players. That it's a real pleasure to be, even like alongside in the same list. So this is the England team that will be playing in the WTC. It's led by the captain, Anthony Chu. And I just want to say a massive thank you for everyone that obviously has supported me. And again, really looking forward to seeing what this team can do. And I think now the next steps will be taking this 16 to a top 8. So I've got no clue if I'll make the top 8. And even if I don't, I mean, what a lineup of players this is in 16. So I'll quickly read out the list. It's Anthony Chu, Conrad Bart, myself, Manny Chima, Mark Cromwell-Home, Danny Everson, Carl Grundy, Alex Harrison, Tom Hinklebottom, Rob Mandeli, Alex Petford, Michael Porter, JP Ramsey, Courtney Rhodes, Joshua Roberts, Matt Robinson, and Vic Vijay. So some big names there, eh?
Absolutely.
So I think I've posted a link to the group on our Facebook page, and what's going to happen next is over the next few weeks and months, we are going to be set challenges by Chu, and he'll be selecting then the top 8, I think, later on in the year. So I'll keep people posted, and even if I get picked, I'll obviously be supporting the team no matter what, even if I don't as well. So I wish everybody the best of luck, and really appreciate everyone's support. So hopefully I can bring on some of these guys in the future onto the show as well. We can talk about some of our lead up to the WTC if it all goes ahead, and playing in that World Team Champs to become the reigning champions, because currently the England team won it last year. So obviously we're going to be trying to defend that title once more. So looking forward to that. So until next week, guys, we'll see you on another episode of the Competitive 40k podcast. Take care.
This podcast is brought to you by the Vanguard Tactics Academy, the only online coaching course for Warhammer 40,000. At the VT Academy, not only do we help you win more games in the right spirit of the game, we'll build confidence and we'll help you get more value and enjoyment from your hobby and take you through step-by-step guides for everything from starting your first army to tournament play to advanced tactics. Sign up at vanguardtactics.com.